Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and to the very last video of 2021. So I thought of a fun video idea earlier on this year that I decided I wanted to do every single year for either like the very last video of a year or like depending on the timing, the very beginning of the next year. And basically this is going to be a bunch of movies and TV shows that I discovered in 2021 or in years following that I just absolutely loved and I wanted to share with you guys. Well, obviously I watch a lot of movies. I mean, I went to see so many movies this year. So this particular list, I'm only going to be talking about movies and TV shows that my definition of discovered, in the sense that this movie or TV show had been out for a while before I finally sat down and watched it and like fell in love with it. Well, obviously I saw like Encanto, Jungle Cruise, Luca, Cruella, all these movies like right when they came out. So those movies I will not be including, because if I did include every single thing that I saw like right when it came out, this list would be forever long. So this is only including movies where I gave myself like at least a 2-month mark between it coming out and me actually watching it. Some of them are a lot longer than 2 months and some of them like just make that cusp. Let's just dive in and start with the movies and TV shows that I found this year that I love. The first movie on this list is a little bit of a cheat, just a little bit, because I technically watched it in 2020, but it was right at the end of the year and it was so good and I want to talk about it. This movie is the movie Klaus. This is a Netflix original animated movie. It is a Christmas movie and we watched this right at the very end of 2020 and it is become one of my favorite Christmas movies. It is so good. So this movie follows a postman named Jesper. He is very privileged. His father is very wealthy and so he lives his life very entitled and doesn't want to do any work, doesn't want to help anyone, just doesn't want to do any work, doesn't want to like put in his effort for anything. So his father gets sick of him and says, fine, I am going to send you basically to this town that is in the North Pole and you are going to live there and be the postman there for a year, and if you do not deliver 6,000 letters by next year, then I'm cutting you off. Jesper very reluctantly goes to this North Pole town to be the postman there and soon discovers that people there don't send letters because they hate each other. There are 2 clans that live in this North Pole city, town, whatever, and they don't like each other. And you know, it's easier to just, you know, hit someone and beat them up rather than send them a letter and tell them I don't like you. One day Jesper discovers a woodsman named Klaus who lives off in the woods and no one really talks to him or knows about him, but he builds toys. And so Jesper starts convincing the children of the town to write letters to Klaus, and in turn they will get a toy from him. Jesper realizes what he's doing, like scheming these children for letters, is probably not the best, but he's loving his new friend and he's loving actually the feeling of giving the toys to the children. So it's kind of like, what do I do? But it is so good. This has seriously become one of my favorite Christmas movies. I just talked about this in my last video where I talked about my favorite Christmas movies, and like I said in that video, I have another Christmas movie that is my all-time favorite, but this has definitely become like my second favorite Christmas movie. It is just so good. If you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend it. It is on Netflix. It is so good. The animation is absolutely beautiful. Highly recommend it. Next movie on this list is Jigsaw. It took me a while. It took me a while to actually sit down and watch Jigsaw. I think it came out in 2018, but I don't remember exactly. Maybe 2017. Either way. Took me a while to actually sit down and watch Jigsaw, but I kind of got into a kick this year where I was watching lots of the Saw movies again. Sam and I actually rewatched all 9 Saw movies, and I just was watching a lot of like Saw related videos on YouTube, so I was like, okay, I need to actually sit down, I need to watch Jigsaw. So the story of Jigsaw is it takes place like 10 years after the events of, I believe, the first Saw, I think. Basically, there's a new Jigsaw killer, and he's killing people in very Jigsaw-y ways. And it's about a detective, Detective Halloran, and a medical examiner named Logan Nelson. And basically, they are both doing their own little investigation because they both think each other is this copycat Jigsaw. So they're both doing their own little investigations trying to figure out who this new Jigsaw is. But there's a lot of clues and things leading them in different ways, because there's clues that basically tell them this is actually like John Kramer. It's not actually a copycat. This actually has become like my third favorite Saw movie. Sam and I did an entire video ranking all the Saw movies, and this is only after Saw 1 and Saw 2, which, not even in just my opinion, but in usually like most people's opinions when it comes to the Saw films, 1 and 2 are arguably the best Saw movies, and so this one being third is a big deal. I know a lot of other people don't really love it. I know they don't love the traps, but especially compared to like this other newest Jigsaw movie, which is Spiral, I loved this one like a lot more than Spiral. It is so good. I feel like as a Saw fan, it took me a really long time to watch it. So I hope if you're a Saw fan, you have already watched it. And if you have, let me know what you think about it down below. Because like I said, I know a lot of people don't like it, but I really liked it. And even Sam really liked it. It was his third favorite as well. The next movie is another Netflix movie called The Mitchells vs. the Machines. This movie is adorable and hilarious. It is so good. This movie did come out in 2021, but it came out in April and I didn't watch it until like September, so that's why I'm including it on this list. This movie is about a family, the Mitchells, mostly about the older daughter, Katie. She has been accepted into film school, which she's very excited about, and it's something that she usually does with her little brother, who he totally gets it and understands her like weird personality, but one person who does not get it is her father. And so her father wants to go on one last family road trip to take her to college, just to spend time as a family, and things go horribly wrong when machines basically take over the world. It's literally up to this quirky, hilarious family to save the world. I laughed out loud 900 times during this movie. It is so good. The characters in it, especially the family, are hilarious. Like, the dad is this like survivalist kind of a guy, where his two children are very into like technology, and he just like doesn't understand it. Like, he's the type of person where it's like, oh, take a photo of me, and he can't figure out how to take a photo on someone's cell phone. He's hilarious. The children are hilarious. Even their dog is hilarious in this movie. Next movie is Clue. Sam has been trying to convince me to watch this. I mean, he's been trying to convince me, and I've never really said no. We just never put it in. And so finally Sam put in Clue, and we watched it, and it is hilarious. Obviously, this follows the like game board characters. We got Mr. Green, Professor Plum, Miss Peacock, Miss Scarlet, Colonel Mustard. We got all those guys in a spooky mansion, and someone dies, and we must solve who did it in what room with what object. There's an entire scene near the end where Tim Curry is just running around like a lunatic, describing the situation and describing what happened, and it is so funny. I know that there was a whole thing where different theaters, when this movie came out, were given different endings, and so we have the DVD copy, so we have all three endings. So it showed the first ending, which I can't remember who the killer was in the first ending, but then after that it was like, but was it this way instead? And then it showed the ending where Miss Peacock is the killer. And then after that, it's like, but is this the ending? And I remember watching the first two endings and being genuinely disappointed that it wasn't Tim Curry who was the bad guy, because I think Tim Curry is one of the best bad guys that ever existed. If they ever make a movie about my life, I want Tim Curry to play the bad guy. So I was very disappointed with the first two endings that Tim Curry wasn't the killer. However, when the third ending happened and everyone was the killer, I just thought that was absolutely hysterical. Basically, everyone except Mr. Green was a bad guy. and I thought that was just so funny and I loved it. Don't know if this movie is on Netflix. We have it on DVD, but if you can get your hands on it, highly recommend it. Then the last movie on this list is another movie that actually has J.K. Simmons in it, because J.K. Simmons does the voice of Klaus in Klaus. So this movie is Whiplash with Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons. So this movie follows Miles Teller, I forget his name in the film, but it follows him, and he is a music student and he wants to become a jazz musician playing drums. He gets invited to be a part of like this very elite performance group at his school, where J.K. Simmons is the leader, conductor of this group, and he is not a nice fellow. Not nice at all. This movie is literally an hour and a half of J.K. Simmons just screaming and swearing at everyone and telling them mean things. Basically because he just wants them to be better. He wants them to be the absolute best that they can be at whatever instrument they are playing. The ending of this movie is absolutely incredible. J.K. Simmons gets fired from his teaching position, and you find out it was because of something that Miles Teller did. You think that he doesn't know, and then he actually runs into Miles Teller, and it seems like all is well and they're chummy, and he invites Miles Teller to play in a band that he has that's performing at something coming up, and he's like, there's going to be a lot of like scouts there's going to be a lot of people looking for drummers and musicians there, so you should come. So this is like a make or break your career deal that J.K. Simmons is like offering to Miles Teller. So he's like, these are the songs we're going to be playing, like get yourself ready. And so Miles Teller is all hyped up, he's ready to go. He goes to this performance, and basically J.K. Simmons says to him, I know it was you that got me fired. And then he reveals that all the songs that they are actually playing are nothing that Miles Teller has prepared for. This major situation for his career, and J.K. Simmons has basically ruined it for him. However, Miles Teller doesn't let it ruin it, and he basically outplays everyone and like doesn't stop even when J.K. Simmons tells him like stop. He doesn't. He just plays and plays and plays and plays and just plays until the movie ends, and it is phenomenal. I'm pretty sure I read that Miles Teller did all his own drum work for this movie, and if he did, like, bravo, because it is amazing, and I cannot believe the like strain that he put himself through, and to think that there are like performers and musicians out there who do similar things just because all they want is to be a musician is insane. So well done to him. He was incredible in this movie, and if it's true that he did do all his own drum work, like A+, A+++. Like, so now we are going to move on to TV shows, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 TV shows that I want to talk about. First one is Superstore. So this TV show was actually recommended to me by Netflix. It was just like, I think on like the trending list, and I saw like a little peek of it, and I remember sitting with my brother, and we thought this like peek of it that it showed looked stupid. It was the first like couple moments where I believe Jonah is being interviewed for this position at Cloud9 by Dina, and we watched it, and then we decided to watch the first episode, and I remember my brother and I thinking that it looked so stupid. Like the first episode, we were like, this is so stupid. But for some reason, I continued on with it. Like something inside of me was like, you know what, give it a chance, Jodey. And I've given a lot of shows chances, and usually, for the most part, it hasn't worked out for me. But for Superstore, it did work out for me because this show made me laugh so hard. I genuinely loved pretty much every single character on this show. I loved every little side plot that happened with all these like minor characters. Like I loved Dina, Glenn, Cheyenne, Miles, just such good characters. My only complaint, and the only characters that I did not like on this show, are unfortunately the two main characters. I did not like Amy, and I did not like Jonah. Literally, if there was ever something going on the show that involved the two of them, I could care less. If there was a side plot going on with any other characters, that was what I was invested in, was the side plot with Glenn and his 15 foster children, or Cheyenne and Miles playing a weird game throughout the store with customers and stuff. Anything going on there is what I was committed to, but anything going on with Jonah and Amy, I could care less. Didn't care when they started dating. I didn't care when anything major happened in their relationship because I just was not a fan of either of them. Obviously this show, it's about people who work at a superstore, like a kind of like a Walmart kind of a place, like a place that sells everything. Should have said that, sorry. Every once in a while they would show like clips, just like short little like 10-second long clips of like the customers in this store, and that was what made this show like top notch, was these random moments. I specifically think there was one where a woman picked a thing of deodorant off the shelf, like took off the lid and smelt it, and then put it on under her arms and then put it back on the shelf, which is like disgusting. But it was just little things like that that made this show so funny. The next show I'm going to talk about is Schitt's Creek. This show has been on for a while. Like, it actually ended a little while ago, and I finally got around to watching it this year. So this is a show where it's a family that is very wealthy, like very, very wealthy, lose everything. They have absolutely nothing to their name, and so they are forced to move to this very small town, move into a motel in this small town, and the town is called Schitt's Creek. It is written by and stars Dan and Eugene Levy. It is absolutely so funny. I think my favorite character is David. And I only say that I think I say that because I literally love every single character on this show. Like, there isn't a single character on this show that I wasn't a fan of. Maybe Mutt at the like first season and a half. Can't remember when he leaves. This was one of those shows where I was very disappointed knowing that I was getting closer and closer to the end, because obviously it's done and there's nothing else to continue on. However, at the same time, this show ended so perfectly. Like, I can't imagine a better ending for this TV show. Everyone, you could tell, just like grew up and matured from who they were at the beginning of the show, especially Alexis and David, where they were just these absolute spoiled brats. Now they've grown up so much and matured so much. So the next show I want to talk about was actually recommended to me, I think back in like 2019, if not sooner than that. My friend Tori recommended the show The Good Place to me forever ago, and it wasn't until this year that Sam and I finally sat down and watched it, and I'm glad that I finished it on time for Tori and I to talk about it when she visited here in October. This TV show is about a woman named Eleanor, and she wakes up and realizes she died. She's been taken to the good place, which is like I don't know, heaven. And they're like, yeah, you're here because you were such a good person on Earth. You did all this volunteer work and you helped orphans in Africa and you did all this and you did all this. And just to find out, she's like, yeah, no, I'm not that person. And there was a mix up in the system, and she was actually a horrible person when she was alive and on Earth. Just her and her like soulmate in the afterlife trying to hide that she is not supposed to be there, that she was actually a really bad person. I think I love every character on this show. The beginning of the show, there's a character named Tahani, who I think you're supposed to not like her at the beginning of the show, but throughout the season, even throughout season 1, I was like, okay, now I do like Tahani. I think the way they wrote her and the way she was at the beginning, you were definitely not supposed to like her, but she definitely gets better. And same thing with Schitt's Creek. It had a fantastic ending, like ended so well. I remember talking to Tori about it, and she was like, I remember bawling my eyes out when the series finale happened. And just the way it ended was just so good. So I'm gonna tear up thinking about it because it just ended so well. This one was very similar to Schitt's Creek in the sense that it's like, hey, it needs to end, like it's going really well, but there's nowhere else you can really go, so let's end it now before we go into things that just aren't gonna work anymore. For both Schitt's Creek and A Good Place, they ended so well before it like went downhill, like lots of shows do. And the next one is Parks and Recreation. Very similar TV show idea to The Office, which I am a huge fan of. I love The Office. This one stars Amy Poehler and Rashida Jones and Chris Pratt. This show is about Amy Poehler. She is the head of the Parks Department. I don't know. Something very high up in the Parks Department in the city that she lives in, which is Pawnee. She is a big, like, I love the government, I love being a feminist, I love all of these things, and she is like big on all these things, but just like works with people who like couldn't give a shit. And she is just trying so hard to make things happen. I can think of one character who I wasn't a huge fan of, but he wasn't in the show for very long, so that was good. I think he left after maybe season 2 or season 3. And my absolute favorite character in the whole show is Rob Lowe. I cannot remember his name in the TV show. Cannot remember who he plays, but he is just like the most optimist guy that ever existed, and I love him. He's so funny. I aspire to be Rob Lowe in Parks and Rec. He is fantastic. So this is my one that I kind of mentioned at the beginning of this video, where this one did come out somewhat recently, and I watched it like 2 months after it came out. I'm just gonna confirm when it came out and just to make sure I'm not cheating. Okay, so this TV show came out in like September, and I didn't watch it until like November, December, so it's cutting it close on like that 2-month mark, but I'm just gonna talk about it because it is so good, and that is Squid Game. I knew I wanted to watch this show. Like, I remember Sam telling me about this show, and I knew I wanted to watch it. Kind of just similar to other things. It just took me a while to actually get around to watching it. And so glad I watched it. Sam and I did watch it in Korean and just watched it with subtitles. Though I've heard a lot of people say if you can handle reading the subtitles, to watch it in Korean, because apparently it's different, the English dubbed version. If you have not seen this show, then where have you been? This was like the biggest thing of 2021. Basically, it's about a man who is very down on his luck, has no money to his name, owes a whole bunch of like loan sharks and stuff a bunch of money. So he is invited to participate in a game and has no idea anything about it, as do none of the other 400 some people who play this game. But it is a very deadly game where if you lose, you die. But whoever wins is going to get 1 billion Korean dollars. I think it's yen. I'm so sorry. I think it is equivalent to like 100 billion US dollars. He agrees to participate, and he stays and he plays. And for a TV show where I honestly predicted a lot of things, I was still very, very genuinely impressed with this show. Like, there was a lot of things going on that I was like, this is gonna happen, or this is gonna happen, or this is gonna happen. And a lot of the things I was right about, and I was still very happy. I wasn't disappointed in the fact that I predicted things. There was one thing at the very end that I can honestly say I did not predict at all that blew me away. Like, I could not believe how it ended and how things happened at the very end. And the very last TV show and thing I'm going to talk about that I finally watched in 2021 that was really good. So many people have recommended this to me because I really like scary movies, and I don't know why it took me so long to watch it. I really don't. But I remember one day Sam and I woke up early, and we spent a very good portion of the day, I think from like the time we woke up until like 2 p.m. just like cleaning our house and doing a really good clean of the house and doing things around the house. And so at about 2 o'clock, we decided to just veg out for the rest of the day and watch TV. And we burned through like 6 episodes of Haunting on House Hill. So good. Why did it take me so long to watch this? And now I need to watch Haunting of Bly Manor as well. This follows a family that lived in Hill House, which was haunted, and it goes through a little bit of their childhood when they lived in the house, but it also mostly follows them as adults and how things that happened in that house are still affecting them now, even as adults. One of the siblings just thinks that it's mental illness. He doesn't think it has anything to do with ghosts or anything like that. Another one of the characters has just like this very warped perception of death because of stuff that happened. And one of the children has grown up to be a drug addict because of a lot of the things that happened in the house. And when you see like things play out and you see like what happened to them as children, you understand. You're like, oh yeah, that's why he's a drug addict. That makes sense. But it is so very, very good. I really, really liked it. The ending was, it was unsatisfactory in the sense that I was expecting the very last episode to be like terrifying, and it wasn't, but it was still really good and really wrapped up the story very well. It's still terrifying, but it's not scary in like the traditional sense. I can really honestly only think of one major jump scare that happens in this entire series. Everything else is just gets under your skin and creepy, like in nearly every single scene from the time that they're kids, even when they're adults. There's always something in the background just like creeping away and being such a creep, and it's terrifying. And I'm very excited to watch The Haunting of Bly Manor because I've heard that that's really good. It's by the same creator, and then also he's now come up with Midnight Mass, which I need to watch. So there's a lot of spooky things on the horizon for Jodey. That is everything for this year. If you guys can think of any TV shows, movies that you think I've never seen, let me know down below and I will try to give them a watch in 2022 to have them on my 2022 list. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you all had a great year. I know it was not a fun year. Let's hope for better things in 2022. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you had a great year, and let's all hope for a fantastic 2022. I will see you guys then. If you liked this, I would love if you would like and subscribe. I post new videos every single Friday, and I'd love to have you here. Happy New Year, everyone. I'll see you in 2022. Bye, everyone.